Hey there, Dr. Michelle Alden. I just wanted to talk today about apologies and forgiveness a little bit, and especially in light of kids and how to deal with this. And so I'm going to go through this. These are my ideas of how to handle this. This is what I feel like works really well with people in general, but especially with kids. But every family is a little bit different on how they want to handle it. So, but these are just my thoughts and ideas. So I like to try to first of all, I look at it in two different ways. So there's, and what's required, right? So sometimes things happen on accident. I might bump into somebody. I might actually step on somebody's toes when I'm in the kitchen moving past them, or I might drop something on accident. A lot of things are just accidents and mistakes, and we want our kids to be able to understand that was just an accident, right? And sometimes our accidents, though, and our mistakes hurt other people. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky, right? Because your child may be telling you, like, I didn't mean to do it, and they've done plenty of things that maybe they did mean to do, and so we're a little bit edgy, right? Especially when someone else gets hurt. If your child is always in trouble and always doing things, like, it's very easy to kind of jump to the conclusion that maybe it wasn't really an accident. And so helping kids to understand that, like, we do something and it's an accident, it still requires an apology, right? Or at least a sorry, right? So depending on what it is, like, if I bump into somebody, I don't need to ask them to forgive me. But if I bump into somebody and I knock them down and it hurts them, then that's going to be different than just a simple sorry, right? And so you can do something on accident, but then you need to think about, I like the other part of it. It's like, what can we do to fix it, right? And some of that can be determined by the person that did it, but some of it has to also be determined by the victim. And so I think that we can help our kids to not manipulate situations by, like, well, I said I was sorry. It's like, right? Like, you broke their toy and it was an accident. And the parent may be saying, like, oh, it's okay, it's an accident, right? They have so many toys, whatever. But it doesn't teach the child that broke something anything, right? So they may need to know how they can fix that. It's like, what can we do to make it right? And you might have to talk to your child about that another time. Maybe you can't even do it because if other parents are going to be embarrassed, right? They're going to be saying, oh, it's okay, it's all right. But you want to have this process with your child where you can help them learn how to make things right if they can. And so I think this is another part of kind of cause and effect that can really help our kids. So if let's say I do step on somebody, or I step on their toes when I'm walking past them, or I accidentally push them, not push them, but like nudge them, and I actually hurt them, like they're like, ow, like that really hurt. I think it's important for our kids to know, like, you need to say you're sorry, and to help them to do that, because if they didn't do it on purpose, they should be sorry, right? So we're teaching them, like when you do something on accident, then you need to say sorry. And usually if they're really mad about it and they're like, I didn't do it on purpose, like, okay, then all you need to do is say that you're sorry. But I can also, the way I might follow that up is like, oh man, I'm sorry, are you okay? And so that's teaching them, like, to come around that, a little bit differently. Are you okay? And is there anything I can do? So that's one part of it. It doesn't have to be really elaborate, but it's just something to start teaching your kids to think about. The other piece of that is if the child did something on purpose, like hurt somebody's feelings, did something mean, broke something, even if they broke a toy and it wasn't necessarily on purpose, but it's actual, like, something that matters to somebody else that happened, then they may need to ask for an apology. I mean, they may need to give an apology and ask for forgiveness. So I think an apology has to have that piece of it, of like getting that from the other person. And I think this is a really important thing for our kids to learn, because there's a reciprocal part of relationships that I think our kids need to learn really early in grade school, but I don't think they've learned it. Whether it's because they had challenges, whether it's because they have mental health issues, it's just got missed. And so whatever age they are, it's like we have to learn that part of relationship is like, if I do something that hurts you, that was an action that I chose. Maybe I didn't mean to hurt them on purpose, but if I hurt somebody in my action, I chose the action. I don't always get to choose the consequence that's going to happen from that. That also lies with the other person. So I can offer, I am so sorry. I hope you can forgive me for that. I may have to also say, what is there anything I can do to make it up to you? But part of humbling myself is to be able to say, I really hope you can forgive me. I can see that I really messed this up, and I hope that you can forgive me. I have to know that when I do that other person has their own agency, and they might not be able to forgive me. And if they do, they might not be able to show that to me in a way that makes me feel that. But I have a responsibility on my own agency too, to offer that. And this is a higher level, right, for our kids. And I don't think most of our kids are ready for that yet, the ones I work with anyway. But I think it's important to be aware of that as a person, that we're trying to teach these skills to our kids. So yes, we start off teaching them to say that they're sorry, but then we should follow that with is there anything I can do to make it better? What do you need? And if the other person's like, no, I'm okay, I'm all right, that's fine. But if there's something that happens later, especially as our kids get older and have more complex relationships, they need to also understand that if you do damage to the relationship, even if it wasn't on purpose, that they need to make an apology that also addresses that. Gosh, I know I hurt you, and I don't know if you can forgive me, but I really hope that you can. And this is something I think that we're kind of losing in our society. Everybody wants to feel justified about what they did. So they may say I'm really sorry I did that. That's my trauma response, or that was just, that was the way I was raised, or whatever. And I think that's maybe true, right? But if you hurt somebody, they may or may not care about that piece of it. So we want to learn how to own what we did. And that's a lot of what you're kind of teaching your kids in this. So it's to not be ashamed, to own what they did, but also know that even in doing so, it doesn't magically fix everything. And I feel when it's other people in the relationship, we have to work with those people. If it's between siblings, right? So a sibling does something and then the other child's like, well, I don't forgive you, or I don't forgive you, or you're not really sorry, right? It's that. I think that then, we're working with them on hey, what do you want them to do? They are saying that they're sorry. Is there anything that they could do to make it better? And so, and all of this is not going to happen in the moment when people are really, if someone gets hurt, they're escalated. And then we're trying to have this conversation. Okay, well, you say you're sorry. You say you forgive them. I understand with 2-year-olds, we're teaching that language, but I don't know that we're really actually teaching the principle. So if we can teach little kids a more simple version of I'm sorry, and are you okay, is one thing, right? When we're talking about little kids, as they get older, we have to teach this more complex understanding of it, because it has to do with relationships, and our kids are going to have relationships outside of their family. So it's working on all the ends of it, So you may, at one point, when nobody's having a problem, just have a conversation, or teach a lesson about, forgiveness and what that looks like, and how do we, how do we forgive somebody if they did something to us, and how hard is that, and can we do that? Is forgiveness mean that we have to trust them? If you have a neighbor kid that comes over to your house and is always breaking your child's toys, is it wrong for your child to be able to say I don't like it when Tommy comes over because he always breaks my toys? It's okay, well, before Tommy comes over, are there things that we can put away? Do we have to trust that this kid, or if you have a kid that, is taking things, it's like setting things up, is fine. We have to teach our kids that just because we forgive somebody and we're not holding a grudge, which we have to actually teach that, doesn't mean that we just give somebody free rein to do whatever they want to us. So it's teaching those boundaries, but it's teaching in a way that still keeps relationships intact as much as possible. And I feel like part of what we fail at in our society is that we have all these people that are going to stand up for their rights, and nobody's, they're not going to be sorry about anything because they have their own, stuff that's going on, and it's all about me. But on the flip side, like we also have to teach people, like, it's okay to forgive, but and how do we rebuild trust and all of these kind of things. And so I think, it's just for us as adults, as parents, to recognize that there's some complex things in here that would be hard for us as adults to figure out, how to have a boundary and to love somebody and care about them, but also not just be a doormat, but then on the other hand, to be loving and forgiving, and to not be so fragile that we can't be vulnerable, so there's a lot of complexities. And I think if you can break those things down for your child, at levels that they're able to handle it, it will help a lot. And I think that, especially like in this being able to ask for, to be able to say they're sorry or ask for forgiveness, I think in simple terms, to be able to show them the difference between when you do something on purpose or you do something that actually hurts somebody, more than just like, oh, I'm sorry. It hurts them, right, if you step on their toe, but you don't necessarily, have to, unless you pound it on their toe. It's completely different than if you broke something that they let you borrow. I can't just return something broken to this person. It's like if I, and it's teaching that piece of, like, there's times when I'm going to make a mistake or I'm going to do something and I'm going to have to fix it and make it right. And so helping our kids, like, I like that question. It's like, so how can you fix that? Is there anything you could do that would make it better? And they may feel hopeless about it. No, they're going to be mad at me forever, and it's like, maybe they might be, but that's on them. If you do your part, then it's up to them. And if they can't forgive you, you can't force them to forgive you. You're not going to keep, trying to bribe them to forgive you, but you can offer that. And then I think on the flip side of that, helping our children to learn how to forgive and to accept an apology, right? So we have to teach them how to give an apology. And this is where it's also going to be tricky, because you're going to teach this to your child. You're going to give your child these kind of skills. Not everyone else is going to have those skills, even other adults, right? So they're going to have some struggles in that, just like, hey, I wanted to say I was sorry, or, and they wouldn't accept it, but then also, like, realizing that when they're wrong, they may not get a very good apology, right? They might not. So we have to teach our kids how to deal with that and how to forgive or move on or what they want. And so sometimes it comes down to, I know with my kids, sometimes there was, problems. It was like, okay, so what do you want in this relationship? Like, do you still want to be friends with this person? Or are you saying, like, there's too many things that have happened and this isn't a good person to be friends with, So, because sometimes our angst and frustration in the relationship when something happens is because we do really want that relationship. So helping your children, especially your teens, kind of maneuver through that, it's going to do wonders for helping them to maneuver through things as an adult. And I think it's just, and also, like, teaching them, if somebody says they're sorry to you, giving them the tools of what they can do to say, yeah, I forgive you, or you know what, it's okay. Or if there's something they want out of it, it's like, I can't forgive them because I'm so mad that they broke it. It's like, well, could you tell them, like, hey, I forgive you for breaking my whatever, but you need to fix it. Like, you need to make it right. So So just some things to think about and some things to work on with your kids and as a family, to talk about these things. And I think even as adults to just consider that, in your relationships, like what do you want to have happen, and what would make it better, and how could someone, I remember asking somebody this one time, I was like, how could someone get back in your good graces? Do you have a way for someone to get back in your good graces, or are you just winging it? Like, well, when I feel like it, right? Like when I've made them suffer enough, And so we're modeling that to our kids, like, this happened and I talked to the person and then I was able to move on. Because sometimes in relationships, there is a person that has to just kind of let go of it. Like, I said my piece and this is where I was coming from, and now I'm ready to move on, and maybe they are too, So lots to consider. I could probably talk a lot more about this, but I just wanted to put some thoughts in your head about apologies and forgiveness, and just give you some food for thought on that.